Families with loved ones living in long-term care facilities are trying to navigate how to stay emotionally connected when visits are limited to COVID-19. Pat Strasberg is on the front lines of this new world and is here to offer her tips and advice. And Pat, welcome. This is such an important topic. And gosh, you know, I mentioned you're on the front lines of this whole situation. So briefly tell us, you know, what has your journey been like before COVID and now your husband was diagnosed, and what's the whole story?
Well, that's an interesting one, Carol, because it has been a journey, and it's a journey of ups and downs, as most of life is, but this had a double impact for sure. Because back in 2013, he was diagnosed with the Alzheimer's diagnosis, and it was interesting because he knew ahead of time when he came to me and said something is going on in my head. And people are often surprised about that.
Oh gosh, I imagine so. Yeah.
But once we had the diagnosis, I went, now what do we do? And I looked for education first, and I signed up with the Alzheimer Dementia Resource Center they have a 6-week course called the Savvy Caregiver. And there I learned a lot, and education gave me a basis, because I learned one of the rules of caregiving is to take care of yourself. And I thought that was a revelation, actually, because when that happens, most people think that's pretty selfish. But they found that the quality of caregiving to the patient depends on the caregiver's health and vigor.
And they have to have that emotional and physical stability, really, to deal with everything else that's coming at them.
Yes, unfortunately, 65% of caregivers who are married predeceased their patient, and that's a very high number.
Gosh, I had no idea it was 65%.
Yeah.
Goodness. So
then I said, well, now what do we do with this information? Now I'm loaded, where do we go next?
Right.
So we actually went to an activity-based program here in Central Florida called the Brain Fitness Academy, which is activity-based. So I had every few days to drive him there, get him settled, and he loved the program because it was mind games and exercise with other people that have the same diagnosis, and they felt comfortable with each other. So then that lasted a few years, but there was a decline. And so the next step was to go to Share the Care, which had 5 daycare centers in Orlando. And I was able to drop him off when I needed to do my shopping,
errands, just
get a haircut, all the things we have to do to take care of ourselves. And when that didn't work, my family finally said to me, Mom, it's time. So he was placed in a facility quite near my home a few months before the virus.
Oh gosh.
So before the virus, I had a student help me, so I was able to get out and exercise, meet the ladies for a bridge game once a week, so I had some social
doing those
connection.
Wonderful self-care things that a caregiver really needs to do.
And it's funny you say that, because other caregivers who are new to the game have often asked me, like especially men, they'll say, does that mean I can still play my golf game on Saturday?
It's very important that they do that.
Yes, but they did feel they could do that, you know, that they had to be on 24/7. And I said, no, you have to go to the golf game. You have to talk to other people. You have to stay connected to the world. So when he went in, it was a breath until COVID hit.
And then everything changes.
Oh, did it
Were you
ever.
able to visit him, you know, in person
Well,
at all?
yes, in the first few months I went every day, and I would just check on him, and he seemed to be adjusting very nicely, and they had activities there. So I was able to have a semi-life, but then all of a sudden one day I showed up at the facility and they said, you can't come in here anymore.
And I mean, that affects you and affects him
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
So now, of course, the protocols are changing a bit, thank
Yes.
goodness.
Yes.
So are you able to visit him in person now?
Well, Governor DeSantis had a task force that met the end of August, and that task force came up with guidelines, and the guidelines gave us the ability to go back in. And so
Thank
now
goodness.
I am back in, but there are some that are not. And for those people, they're calling the Agency for Healthcare Administration,
Sure.
and they're talking to an ombudsman. But I'm back in, bringing him milkshakes and his favorite Kit Kat bar, so we're good.
Doing those wonderful
Good
things.
to go.
I think really, basically, you're telling folks out there, if you're in this situation, there is hope. There are these agencies, which will have all the information up after this segment.
Absolutely, just call them.
And there really is hope for the caregiver as well as the person who needs the care.
Yes.
And so hope is the magic word right now.
Absolutely, don't give up, and your loved ones need you. They need the
Absolutely.
human touch.
And Pat, I appreciate your willingness to share your journey on how you were staying connected to your husband during this pandemic. Such great information. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Carol, for having me.